IVM.
Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach, and this is the 1000th episode. So, the theme of the podcast so far has been about habits and understanding the little small quick habits that you could be using. Going ahead, we're going to be talking about how do you evolve yourself one habit at a time. And we have a guest today who I think embodies evolution the best. We have Kunal Kapoor with us in the studio. Kunal, welcome to the Habit Coach podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, man.
You know, this whole thought of evolution, right? Like when I say the word evolution, what are the kinds of thoughts that come to your mind?
What comes to my mind right now is the first thing that comes to my mind, because I'm sort of really interested in future tech, is AI.
Wow.
That's we often I know it's a bit of a wild thought, but we often talk about how AI is going to come and take over all the jobs, and then human beings are going to be like the second class citizens, right? And I often, when I think about evolution, I imagine that maybe we're not the peak of evolution. We're just another step in evolution. Maybe there's something else that's meant to be after us, and we're going to eventually 200, 300 years down the line be the monkeys that the next sort of species evolved from.
But the thing is that you think AI is going to be a big part of this? Do you think our human body in itself is going to evolve, or it's going to be like part of technology?
I have no idea. I mean, nobody knows where this is going to go, right? I've been following this guy called Ray Kurzweil for a really long time, and he's the one that's been talking about singularity. And he believed, I think, at that point of time, I think he was talking about, I forget the exact year, but I think it was 2049 that he believed that singularity will happen. And human beings and machines will be one.
Correct.
We'll have bones made of like metals which are very light, and you'll obviously have a fake heart, and you'll have organs that are created in laboratories and stuff, right? So you'll eventually sort of be like a cross between a human being and a machine.
In our lifetimes, imagine
which
that.
we are in some ways, right? You have a pacemaker. That's a machine.
Correct.
That's inside your body, and then you've got like titanium, if your hip breaks, then they put the ball, which is titanium. So we're already there, but we just don't realize it because it's become a part of our lives. Ray Kurzweil talks about singularity in 2049, but recently I was reading his interview, and he said that because of the advances in AI, he thinks that singularity will actually happen by 2031 now.
Oh, much earlier.
Which is not very far away, which is 8 years away.
Excited about it, or?
I'm not quite sure. I think, the thing is that, when you're looking at it from here and looking at the future, and, it feels a bit freaky. But like I'm saying, today you have a pacemaker, and it's just sort of part of your life, right? So eventually, these things just become part of your life. Who would have thought that 10 years back we didn't have... you couldn't video call somebody on your WhatsApp. It wasn't possible, right? You had to, like I remember in 2007, 8, around that time when you wanted to make a call, my sister stays outside India, so when we want to call her, you either made a trunk call or you went down to one of those booths, right? And you'd be in the booth and you'd be like, okay, now it's 200 rupees, I've got to hang up. That was not very long back. It was 15 years ago. And today we all have phones, and we just,
And communication is practically free.
Communication is free. You're constantly in touch with everyone across the world. I mean, you're probably more in touch with somebody in Scandinavia through Twitter than you are with your own neighbor, right? So it's evolved so much, and, it's just become part of our lives. So I think a lot of things, when you look at them in the future, they seem a bit like scary and overwhelming. But I think then, eventually it just becomes part of who you are.
We adapt to it. Right?
Yeah, we just adapt really quickly. I mean, during COVID, how many of us just adapted to working from home?
Yeah.
It was just, now nobody wants to go back to office.
So I was reading this post the other day that said that, and this is the flip side of all of this, that, I'd never imagined a future where AI would be robots would be writing poetry, and humans are still doing the hard work, correct? We wanted to do it the other way around.
Correct.
So now
That's
we
so
got
true.
all our AI writing poetries and things like that, and we're still getting our hands dirty. So I
Correct.
think
Correct.
that switch we're waiting for to take place.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you have evolved in a tremendous way. You know, like I was going through the stuff that you've done so far. You started working in something completely different, right?
Correct.
And then
Correct.
you slowly transitioned. Can you just quickly take us through it? And I want to understand how you thought
Where
through
did I
it.
start? I don't even quite remember now. I mean, I think my first job was exporting mangoes to Hong Kong. Me and a friend of mine had started a company, which we thought at that point was a very cool idea.
Wow.
I was 17, he was 18, I think, at that point. And what we didn't account for is, what the situation of the mangoes would be by the time they reached Hong Kong.
Oh, God.
So if it got delayed and stuff, what would happen? So that was obviously not a very successful company. But yeah, I think
But this is what, 16, 17?
Yeah, 17, I think, yeah. But the seeds for, like, I think, wanting to do something that was entrepreneurial was sort of sown quite early. Post that, I started working with my dad. He had a
Just before
construction
that,
business.
what was there a inciting incident for being entrepreneurial? Was it like a family thing? Did you only see entrepreneurs around you? Where did that come
I'm
from?
not quite sure, yeah. I mean, I remember my first thing as an entrepreneur would be, when I was about 14, I remember in Bombay, there was this new rule that had come out that the postman will not come to your house. You'll have to have post boxes at the bottom, right?
Correct.
And the postman will leave the letters in the post box, and then doesn't have to climb floors and stuff. So I think my first company wasn't really a company, but I remember tying up with somebody and going to societies and making a pitch for these post boxes.
To set up the post box.
Post boxes in the buildings, right? And somebody I knew had come up with these post boxes. Was manufacturing them. So he was selling them to me at a certain price, and I could sell them to society at a higher price. And I remember going to these societies and meeting all these people, right? And they were like, what is this 14-year-old boy? And I remember also wearing glasses and stuff.
To try and look older?
Try and look older, dressing slightly more formally so that it would possibly work. And it did. I remember that was my first paycheck. I sold these post boxes to a building that was in Juhu. And I don't remember exactly what the amount and stuff was, but I think that was my first sort of success.
And foray into selling, right?
Huh?
And foray into selling. Selling is
a bit of a difficult thing.
Right. And that.
But you know what I remember it being it seeming like a good opportunity because it was a rule. It was something that you had to do, right? So sooner or later, every society would have to
get these boxes.
So it was a sort of no-brainer to try and attempt to do this. And so yeah, that was, I think, my first sort of brief stint.
Foray into entrepreneurship. I love it.
But yeah, I think I've always been sort of interested in it. My family is a business family. My dad was into construction. I worked with him for a couple of years, I remember, and then realized that, look, this is definitely not for me. This is not something that I want to do. And also, I think at that point of time, which was, I think, around 99, 2000, construction was a very different kind of business, right?
Right.
It wasn't the buildings that you see today. It was a different kind of architecture. It was also was a bit like murky because there was a lot of like the underworld and stuff that was involved in all this, right?
Correct.
So it wasn't the kind of business that it is today. And I felt like it wasn't something I wanted to do. And I think I was quite clear that I wanted to do something that was creative as well.
So you had a creative streak in you all this while.
I was doing theatre and stuff in school.
Okay.
Yeah. And in college as well. So I think, I mean, I knew that I wanted to do something that was creative, and I wasn't quite sure what that would be. And coincidentally, I got a call from a friend of mine who was working with Rakesh Mehra. And they were looking for somebody with long hair, and I had long hair. And she was like, why don't you come in? There's an ad, you can make 5,000 rupees or something like that. And I said, yeah, sure, okay, let me come in. And she took a couple of pictures, and Rakesh was like, yeah, okay, fine. He looks the part.
He looks the part.
So I went, I shot that ad, and I think once I was on the set and stuff, I was like, okay, this is fun. This is what I would like to do.
So far, no exposure to anything.
I mean, I had a few friends that were film
Okay.
people, like
Right.
their parents and stuff were from the movies. So that was the kind of exposure that we had. We used to go for previews of movies and
Right.
stuff, right? Uh, but no, there wasn't any sort of formal there wasn't any being on a set, or there wasn't talking about movies.
Right.
All that wasn't such a big part of my life.
So you get onto your first ad, you get your 5,000 rupee paycheck.
Correct.
And then you're like, this seems cool.
Correct. And then I decide that, maybe I want to be on a set for a little longer. So I chased Rakesh Mehra for a really long time.
Huh.
He made me run around for, I think, 3-4 months before he gave me a job as a production assistant. And I started working with him, and I worked with him as a production assistant for 3 years.
Oh,
on
so it wasn't
advertising.
that I wanted to be in front of the camera. It could be anywhere.
I just wanted to be on a set and see what this was all about,
Right.
and try and see whether it's something I want to do, and, whether it's something that's exciting for me. So, so I worked as a production assistant for 3 years, then assistant director, because he was directing his first film, which was Ux. So I assisted on that for about 1.5 years, 2 years. And I think by then I was quite certain that I wanted to be in front of the camera, not behind it. That's when the decision was made that, look, I'd like to act and not assist or not direct.
Interesting. And then did you go and like join some courses, or like how did you get the whole acting?
I did, and it was
skills
a very. I was on a flight with Manoj Bajpayee, and we were going to Delhi for the premiere of Ux. And I started chatting with him about acting and how I wanted to act and stuff. And he had come from Barry John, who was at that point in Noida, and he said, you must go and meet Barry if you want to act. So I said, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm here in Delhi. I'll go and see him. So I called him and I said, can I come and see you? And I went and met him, and he said, you're going to have to stay here, obviously, if you want to work with me. So I called home and I said,
Guess what?
Guess what? I'm not coming back for the next 6 months. And I obviously didn't have clothes, nothing, right? And I had lots of family in Delhi. So I started living with a cousin of mine, and I stayed there for 6 months. And that was the beginning of the sort of acting journey.
And like, what are the kinds of things that you picked up in acting school that probably you still use in life right now, in all the other ventures and stuff that you have?
I'm not sure, because, I mean, as you grow, we talk about evolution. I think evolution is lots about discarding stuff that you learn as well along the way, right?
Interesting.
So it's not only about the stuff that you learn. It's also about the stuff that, as you grow up, you feel like, yeah, that was interesting, but, that's not for me. Or it doesn't suit how I think, or it doesn't work for me, right? So you start discarding a lot of the stuff that you've learned as well. So I think evolution is about learning and also about unlearning. And which is why, like, kids are such great actors, right? Because they're not trained, but they have the instinct, right? So the idea is, how much can you also unlearn so that the instinct can start taking over then?
The real you comes out. Is that it, or is it that you create somebody new? Like, how does the whole acting process work for you?
No, I think it's about just connecting. I mean, for me, it's become about connecting deeply with who I'm playing, and believing deeply in what their life is about, and whatever it takes to build that belief. Then, right? So sometimes you're playing a character which is very close to you, and you don't have to really go out of your way to sort of prepare very hard to understand the world of that person, right? Or the mindset of that person. But there are other times when that person's point of view, or where they've grown up and stuff, is very different from yours.
Right.
So then it becomes very, very necessary to sort of understand where they're coming from and who they are, and how can you build a connection between them and you, and find them in yourself. Because, I mean, eventually all of us can be anything, right?
That's the thing, right? You have to find that person inside you and like
Right.
pull that person. It's not a mask that you're wearing.
No, I mean, no, I don't think it's a mask. I think it's about actually being unmasked more than wearing a mask, right? So it's about parts of you that maybe you haven't tapped into, or parts of you that you're not even comfortable with, right? So can you sort of tap into those parts of yourself and bring them forth in service of this character?
Bring it out.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a lot about unmasking more than masking, because I think in life we wear so many masks, right?
You're different at family, you're different
Yeah,
at
yeah,
friends, you're
yeah,
different
yeah,
here,
yeah.
different there.
And you get used to those masks. You're just constantly you start believing that is you, but that's just a habit. And yeah, so I think a lot of the characters are about unmasking yourself and presenting a new sort of face, right?
And you realize that acting comes completely naturally to you? Is it something that took
No.
effort to become?
I don't think it comes naturally, honestly. I think it's a lot of effort has gone into to even reaching where I have reached. I think the thing that comes very naturally to me is storytelling, actually. Is writing is something that actually comes really naturally to me, because there's absolutely no effort involved, right? So I just write very instinctively, and they turn out to be good, the stories and stuff. But acting is different, and I do think that it's also a fallacy, this whole acting coming naturally sort of bit.
Right.
Because I've had the chance to work with some fantastic actors. I mean, as an assistant director, I had a chance to watch Mr. Bachchan and Manoj Bajpayee. Then I had a chance to work with Amir and Shah Rukh and a lot of other wonderful actors. And I've seen how hard they work.
Yeah.
It looks very easy, and it looks like, they've got this and it just comes to them. But there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. I mean, I did some theatre with Nasir Bhai, and I've seen him rehearse the same thing over and over and over again for weeks and weeks and weeks, right? And somebody like him, who's this amazing actor, who's been acting for 45, 50 years, but still making the effort and still, having to do it over and over again to be able to uncover, what the truth of that is. So I think this whole thing of acting being something that is
Comes naturally to you.
just naturally to you is a bit of a fallacy.
Can you share some examples of the hard work that you saw some of these actors putting in?
No, just the amount of rehearsals that they do, the amount of just sitting with their lines, sitting in a corner, thinking about what they want to do, what they want to achieve in that scene. Sometimes being unhappy with what they've done, and wanting to do it over and over again till it reaches a place where they feel like they've achieved what they set out to achieve. And also, I mean, having spoken to them, knowing that they've spent months before this at home, working on the character and working on who this character is, and why the character says the lines that they say. So all that is the work that sort of goes in to make it look like it's effortless, right?
Yeah, like us as viewers, we go and then say, you must have just landed up there and done this.
Right.
No,
right.
That's not how it works at all.
Correct. I mean, there might be some actors. I'm sure, there's always exceptions where people can just, get to a set and be able to do it, right? But I think most actors that I've worked with have been very hardworking. And I think, also it's a very strange thing in our industry, right? So when you look out west, for years, I mean, for the last, whenever you've seen an actor's interview, they actually talk about how much work goes into that character with a sense of, like, this is what is required to get to there, right?
Correct.
We've spent 6 months doing this to get to that place. And here, I used to hear about actors that would spend a lot of time with their lines in the makeup van and then come out and pretend like they don't even know what the scene is. What's the scene? Acha, ye scene kar rahe hain. Because they want to look like, we've got this and it's so simple and easy for us. So it's a very strange kind of mindset where you actually... I mean, I've been on a set where people are like, wow, itna sochta kyun hai yaar? Itna kyun kar raha hai? Right? Like, that's a bad thing.
Right.
Whereas if you...
The hard work's the bad thing.
Yeah, the hard work is the bad thing, or preparing for it is the bad thing. Whereas if you can just come on a set and just do it, then, you're gifted. So I
know
think
where
that
this comes from. It comes from us as, in students as exams. Like, I haven't studied anything. And then you top the class. That's where it starts
It's
from.
that same
The same mentality.
I don't pick up the books only. I don't know how this has happened. So it's a strange sort of thing where we used to believe that creativity doesn't need hard work. And especially as actors, I mean, as singers, people who rehearse for hours every day, an artist paints every day, writers wake up and write every day.
Yeah.
But somehow, we feel like actors should just turn up on a set and just be amazing at what they do, which is strange. I don't know. I'm not quite sure where that.
I think the whole thing about that
originated from.
hard work and creative people has been disassociated. Like I was on an interview the other day. So my book just came out on habits and habit change. So people were asking me, name one habit for creative people. Like every morning write 750 words.
Correct.
Right? You
Correct.
have to put in that effort because that is what you need to do. You can't
Sure.
wait for I'm waiting for inspiration and this
Correct,
will come,
correct,
that will come.
correct,
It's
correct.
just the hard work that you put in every single day.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to also put in. I guess
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
What stops an actor from evolving? Right? Like when does an actor like stop? Like I'm sure you've seen people just like, stagnant.
Yeah, I think there was a very famous actor that told me something which was very interesting, and he said that senior actor, and he said that I've come across a lot of talented people over the years, and it's a famous line that when talent doesn't work hard, I forget what the exact line is, but it was about talent and hard work. So he said that I've come across a lot of people that are talented that just take their talent for granted.
Right.
And he told me a very interesting story. So he was in a drama school with this other actor. And when they used to start their first rehearsal, he said, I used to be amazing. And this guy used to be terrible because I was, he couldn't get his lines right. And I used to look at him and I used to say, what is he doing, Like, how did he get into this drama school?
Why is he even
right?
here, right? Like,
Yeah. And then we used to have our second rehearsal, and I was where I was, and in the first rehearsal, and he was slightly better. By the time we got to the 10th rehearsal, he was amazing, and I was still where I was in the first rehearsal because I was like, I've already got this, right?
Right.
And he said that happened in the first play, it happened in the second play, it happened in the third play, and then I was like, look, wait. There's something not right here because, how does this guy go from the first rehearsal to the 10th rehearsal and, there's such a drastic change.
Right.
So I spoke to him and he said, the problem is I'm not a good actor. So because I'm not a good actor, I have to try something new in every rehearsal till I have to struggle and I have to work hard till I find it. Right. And it takes me like 10, 12 rehearsals to actually find it.
Wow.
And he said that was an eye-opener because I realized that talent by itself was not enough, right? Talent had to work hard.
Right.
So I think what happens is I've seen a lot of people that have a lot of talent, but, they sort of take that for granted. And there's no sort of discipline attached to that talent. And I've seen a lot of people that actually don't have any natural talent. I mean, not any natural talent, but don't have that kind of talent naturally to begin with. And they are very disciplined and they, feel like, look, I have to work very hard to make this happen.
Or earn my place in this place.
To earn my place, I've got to work 5 times as hard as the other guy, right? So working hard and being disciplined just becomes a habit. And I think that's a habit that trumps every other habit, right?
Right. Just putting in the consistency.
Putting in the consistency, working
Are you a
hard.
very disciplined person?
I can be, and sometimes I'm not. I think, what I've realized over the years is that for me to be disciplined, I have to have a very sort of clear target, which is that, like you were saying, is that, if I have to write, then I have to know that I have to write 700 words.
Right.
If I'm like, I'll just sit down and write, then, maybe in 5 minutes or 10 minutes I'm bored and, I'm like, it's not happening today. Maybe I should do this tomorrow. So I'm learning how to play the guitar, right? So the first few days that I started off practicing, I just practiced for 5-7 minutes and it was done. And then I told him that just give me work, right? And work that leads to 20 minutes of practice. So I have to do that work to, get to 20 minutes of practice.
Correct.
So I think once there's clarity, then I'm very disciplined.
Right.
If there's no clarity, then I can just be all over the place, right?
If that direction has been given to you, then it's just like
Correct.
free floating.
Then it's free flowing, and free flowing doesn't always get you where you want to be, right? So
What are the things that you're definitely very disciplined about in your day?
I think just fitness. I think fitness is something that I sort of got into when I was very young. I was incredibly skinny.
Wow. Okay.
I was one of those kids that had to wear 2 pairs of pants to just
Like hold everything up.
just to look like reasonably okay, because I was so thin, right? So I used to wear a pair of jeans, and then I used to have a looser pair of jeans which I used to wear over the tighter pair of jeans.
I've never heard of this. Really, people do that?
Yes, I mean, I
Wow.
used to do it, and I know a couple of friends that used to do that. So, and like a t-shirt, and then like a thicker t-shirt on top of that.
Right.
So that somehow you look, you feel good about yourself, right? And I was one of those kids, we constantly talk about how there's a lot of sort of body shaming for people that are overweight. But it's actually the same for people that are underweight.
Ye sukda.
There's all kind of names you're called, and when you go, I have a lot of family in Delhi and Amritsar and all these places, and I remember going there and saying, they look at you and say, "Kuch khata nahi tu?" Whereas you're pounding food, right?
Right.
It's just that your metabolism is faster than Usain Bolt or whatever, right? So you're not putting on any weight, and everyone's like, "Kuch khata nahi, kuch khilate nahi isko." So I got into fitness to try and put on some weight. Because I felt I had a friend of mine, how you had those comic books. There's the skinny guy, and then he becomes tough and he comes back.
Right.
So we had this one guy in our building, Greg, and he was somebody that we all looked up to, because he used to be very skinny, and then he had become
One summer, he suddenly got muscles.
Yeah, he got like very muscular and stuff, right? So I started working out with him, and that's how my whole sort of fitness journey started. It started as wanting to be aesthetically better, but then eventually it just became my life and my lifestyle, and it's just been a part of my life for the last like 30 years now.
And what are your non-negotiable fitness things?
Non-negotiable fitness things is one is is the diet. I'm really sort of particular about what I eat. I do have a few cheat days and stuff, and I enjoy those, of course, but there's some things that I just don't want to eat, right? Like fried food and stuff is not something that I'm big on, or
But you don't
sugary
touch it with a
drinks
barge
and
pole,
stuff.
or like if you go to someone's house
Just
and they
very,
made it, it's
very,
fine.
very rarely. I
Right.
mean, it's just something that over the years I feel like I don't want to do this. What's the point of this? So yeah, I think just a sort of healthy diet. When it comes to fitness, I think most people think that fitness is about just your physicality, but it's so much more, right? It's your emotional being, it's your mental state. So I do spend as much time as I can meditating.
Right.
I usually start my day with meditation, but if I miss that for whatever reason, then, in the car, you sit and just sort of focus on some, your breath, or you watch your breath, or you try and
Which
stay
form
in the
of
moment.
meditation do you use?
So I've done lots of them. I started off with the Sudarshan Kriya from The Art of Living.
Right.
I was very young then. I was about 17. That was the first kind of meditation that I was introduced to, and then they have these advanced courses and stuff, so I did all those. But over the years, different kinds of meditations, and I think you also reach a place where you start realizing that you don't have to sit in one place to be meditative, right? You can sort of be anywhere.
And you meditative in a podcast like this.
Yeah, you can. You can just about coming back to yourself, right? So that is something that you can do, wherever you are. And so I think you just sort of develop your own meditation formula in your head.
I think that's the key, right? We've got meditation so wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't meditate. How many people say I can't meditate,
Correct.
right? Because I can't sit in this one spot and then just not think of anything. That's what people think meditation is. Right?
Well, it's not about not thinking about anything. It's about just, at least for me, it's about finding some kind of distance from what you're thinking, right? And being able to watch that, and being able to sort of consciously decide what you want to sort of engage with and what you don't want to engage with, right? So I think for me, it's more about that.
Yeah, I love looking and saying, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Huh?
Yeah. And you also start realizing, sometimes I do this. I don't know how to explain this also, but, sometimes I just watch myself going through the day and realize that even if I don't get involved, there's a sort of automatic thing that's taking over, right? So if I want to go into the shower, if I want to arrange my cupboard, if I want to sort of make some payments, I don't have to really think about it. You think that you got to really think about these things. You don't, because you already know,
Right.
and you just have to watch yourself, right? The thing is, how much of that automation do you want to actually sort of get involved with and change? Because there might be some automation which is not working for you.
Yeah.
Whether that's how you think, or how you feel, or the things that you do in the day. So just watching that, I find very fascinating. And sometimes I step in and I feel like, okay, this automation
Needs
is-
tweaking.
needs some tweaking.
In fact,
And-
that's what it is about. Like for the Habit Coach podcast, I realized that every time we talk habits, we say everything's subconscious.
Right.
And I was like, then you're living a subconscious life.
Correct.
The point is to identify all the things that you're doing subconsciously
Yeah.
and see, can you consciously make choices of this? So many things, as many of our habits, are habits that we picked up from our family.
Correct.
Right? Not knowing that we picked these things up.
Correct.
So can we at least become conscious about them?
Yeah.
Then say, are they working for us? Are they serving us? And then tweak them around like you're saying. Absolutely. Just
Yeah.
figuring out and bringing consciousness back to it.
Correct.
You were talking about diet and nutrition. And just recently, somebody on the podcast asked this question, saying that how do we refuse food when people give it to us, especially like if you're on a nutrition plan or a food or on a diet, etc. You go to someone's house and they say, "Arey, thoda sa kha lo." Matlab, how can you refuse this? Right? How do you say no to people?
I don't know. I mean, I've never been in that. I think I've
Don't
been
people
doing
force
this.
you saying that I have this?
Yeah,
Why
I've been doing this for so long now
everyone's just used to
that
it.
everybody just knows. Yeah.
Like you don't get offered biscuits and stuff like that.
No, I mean, I don't know. I don't remember the last time someone was like, you have to eat this, right? So, yeah. I mean, if there is that situation, then maybe I'll just have a bite
Right.
to taste it, right? So sometimes there's something delicious and, someone's like, you've got to taste this at least. So I'll have a bite or 2 bites or whatever. But no, I haven't been in that situation where I'm like, how do I say no to this meal now? No, I don't remember.
Very good situation to be in. Where everybody knows this person. Just don't offer this person anything.
Correct. It's best not to even bother.
Into. And then after that, building muscle, I'm guessing that was also a big part of like
Sure.
aesthetic change, right? Like, do you have a favorite technique? Is there something that you've evolved into and in terms of your movement practice?
So, I think when each of us sort of look into who we are, we'll find like a seed, which we feel like, okay, this is possibly, one thing that is constant. And I think for me, that's always been curiosity.
Right.
I'm just very curious about everything, right? I just really want to sort of understand as many things as I can and sort of engage in as many things as I possibly can. So with the fitness, it's the same thing, right? So, I'll work out, but then I'll also try my hand at martial arts, and then I'll sign up for a Kalari class, and I'll do yoga. And so, it's about Pilates. It's just about trying to experiment with as many different things as you can.
Correct.
And then sort of bringing all that together, right? So, I mean, I might go into the gym and I might be training shoulders, but the mindset of it might be very different. It might be a very sort of Pilates kind of mindset, so I might engage muscles which are very different, which I'm not engaging otherwise.
Correct.
So it's about how do you sort of work with very different things and then bring them together to become something which is uniquely your own, right? And something that you enjoy and something that you feel is most effective for you. So yeah, I think it's very important. Like, I mean, for fitness, I think it's, just going to the gym and stuff is very boring. Just playing a sport, I think, is not enough because you've also got to be physically fit and you've got to be flexible. So I think it's about trying as many different things as possible.
Have you tried anything that is not conventional that, is unique that our listeners will be like, I've never heard of that.
What is unconventional? I mean, I went to London to do a course in parkour.
Oh, nice.
I was there for about 4 months, which was very long back, about 12 years ago.
4 months of parkour?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I trained with this one guy and it was great fun. So I think, that was pretty unconventional because
But that was not for a role or anything. This was
That
just
wasn't
for like,
for a role.
this is
That
just for
was-
because you enjoy it.
yeah, I was very fascinated by it. I mean, I've been very fascinated by like Jackie Chan
Right.
and I remember at that point of time, the thing that really sort of set it off was there was a Bond film, I think.
Right. And
And the
opening scene.
opening sequence of that, I think that was Daniel Craig's first film as Bond.
Correct.
And the opening sequence was parkour. I was like, wow, this is fascinating. I'd love to sort of learn. So I went on the net, found some people that were teaching parkour in London, found a teacher, went there, worked with him. And it used to be really fascinating because I remember we used to go to this place. It was called Elephants and Castle.
Okay.
Elephants and Castle, I think the station's called. And there were all these apartment blocks that had been built, but nobody was staying there. So all these kids used to come there and train and use like the apartment outside the walls and stuff to train in parkour, right? And one of the fascinating things that they used to do is, you know how we play Chor Police? They used to play Chor Police, but you can't touch your feet to the ground.
What?
So you've got to go from a wall to a parapet to a
You can't
car.
touch the floor at all. So
Yeah,
you
you
can jump on the walls.
You can jump on things, objects that are sort of, you can go from a car to
Correct.
a wall to, something that is like a parapet.
Right.
But you can't touch your feet to the ground.
Nice.
So it was fun. It was
Floor is
great
made of
fun.
lava, just like one of those games. Yeah.
Got to imagine.
Yeah, imagine these.
Yeah.
Have you ever wanted to go and train like with Ido and stuff like that? And
I would like to at some point. I mean, I've been fascinated by his theories of like movement, right?
yeah,
I mean,
it's just like so fluid and
yeah, fluid, and also, I mean, I think just the philosophy of it is pretty much in line with what I've always believed, which is you've got to try like different kind of things, and that's what he talks about, right? Is that one day do yoga, and if you're doing yoga, then do a sport, and if you're doing a sport, go to the gym, because how we've evolved is through movement, and if you do just the same kind of movement every day, there's probably getting physically stronger, but there's no neurological sort of
Correct.
evolution, right? So his whole thing is do as many different things as you can
As
do,
you can.
right? So I find that fascinating, and yeah, I'd love to sort of work with somebody like him at some point.
interesting. I mean, I love the whole world of movement. It's just
Yeah,
fascinating.
it's just very
so much
fascinating.
stuff to do.
Yeah, and also, I mean, talking about evolution, how much has fitness evolved over the years, right? I mean, when we were growing up, the only thing that you did was
Gym.
played a sport or went to the gym,
Yeah.
right?
And even then, if you went to the gym, they would say, "Kyun bodybuilding?
Correct.
Why are you trying to become a bodybuilder?
Correct.
You want to become Schwarzenegger."
Also with yoga, I mean, I remember now yoga has become a fad and stuff, and it's caught on across the world.
Yeah.
But not very long back, when I was young, I was like about 16. I had joined a yoga school in Santa Cruz. It was the Santa Cruz Yoga School, and I remember a lot of people like telling me, "Why are you doing yoga at this age?"
It's only for old people.
Yeah, it's for much older people. I mean, why are you getting into yoga and stuff at such a young age, or meditation? And so it was considered something that wasn't something that you did when you were young. It's very strange, and I remember that really clearly. And then obviously the West took to yoga in a big way, and then
And
we
no
are
turning
always
back.
the followers.
And then we got
Even-
yoga pants.
Yeah.
And there's nothing looking back.
And we are followers even when it comes to our own tradition. So
That's
we were
crazy.
like, okay, the West is doing it, Madonna's doing it, maybe it's cool, and we should all do it.
So we were talking about trying fitness, different things from fitness, but you do so many different things in life, right? We'll touch upon each of these, like NFT, pilots, private pilot license, like we were talking about earlier. How do you find the time to do everything?
Well, I don't know, because I've never thought about whether I have the time or not. I think if you're sort of curious and passionate about what you're doing, you'll always find the time. It's the things that you don't enjoy that you sometimes don't find the time
And
for.
force yourself into doing
Yeah,
it.
I think if you're enjoying things, you just automatically find the time for them.
But do you like schedule everything down? Are you a big calendar user? What are your...
I'm trying to be. I'm
Okay.
trying to be, because otherwise it's just it can be very chaotic, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be somebody that sort of sets a schedule for things and works according to that schedule. It's difficult because I'm not that kind of person. But over the years I've learned that there's a great value in that.
in adding your...
Having a schedule and then sort of working towards that, right? So that is something that I'm trying to do now.
So the ones that I know of the fun things that you've done, fun according to me because I love these things as well. So I know that you've got your private pilot's license.
Right.
Right. You were learning your driving in the rally school and Formula 3.
Right.
What other fun things have you done that are like in this vein?
What are the fun things that I've done? I've gone skydiving, obviously. I went deep sea diving, but I didn't enjoy that as much. Yeah, I'm writing. I think that for me is the most sort of fun thing that I'm doing right
Adventure.
now. That's the biggest adventure because it's just so much fun. I think the things that I really enjoy is to tell stories, right? And whether that's as an actor, producer, director, whatever that may be, or even as an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur also, you're telling stories to the world, right? So yeah, I think stories is something that I'm really enjoying. I'm learning to play the guitar. I've been it's been an on-off thing, but now I finally got an instructor.
Wow.
And there is a schedule in place.
Schedule. Do this.
Yeah. So that is something I'm learning how to play. I've just got the djembe, which is something that, I went to this acting school in Pondicherry called Adi Shakti.
Right.
And there they had these things and the whole group used to play it. And it sort of stayed with me since then. And I've been wanting to do it since then. So now I've got a djembe and I've got an instructor for the djembe.
But do you still go to acting schools and do that? Or you're talking about many
This was many years ago. But I still do. I mean, I still, whenever I get a chance, I go and do workshops and stuff.
Okay.
That is something I continue doing. But yeah, so the energy of that was just amazing.
Different, right?
It was different. So that's something I'd like to do. I've just going to start my first class next week. And that is exciting. Yeah, besides that, the whole AI space is fun. I mean, we've been chatting with some people about what a sort of future media studio would look like, right? Because I think I find myself in a very interesting place, which is the intersection between media and technology. There's a lot of people that are in technology but don't have an understanding of the media. There's a lot of people in media but have no interest in technology. So I find myself at a very sort of interesting place. And that is something that I'd love to sort of explore now.
So like almost like a virtual studio or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things there's so much that's going to change about content and filmmaking, right, over the years. And how do you be part of that change and how do you sort of push the boundaries and how do you also, like I see a lot of people in the industry that are not seeing how radically things are going to shift and change, right? So how do you sort of bring them up to speed as well in what's going on?
People will become redundant in this sense because they haven't understood what the future would be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about redundant.
Like
I think
people
will have to.
like
people will have to catch up then.
Learn new skills.
Yeah, whereas you could actually be at the frontier of it right now.
Right.
Instead of trying to play catch up later on, right? So,
do you have an example off the top of your head that you're in the media world, how this is going to change?
I mean, media, I was just reading this very interesting article about how all these online platforms are now going to start using. So, you had models that wore clothes and that was their profession because you got paid, to do this, right? And all these platforms and websites and stuff to use these people to model clothes for them. Now, eventually what's going to happen, and it's already started happening, is obviously you have AI-generated people. And these are people that you can put the clothes on and you can put them in any sort of pose that you want to. So suddenly you have a whole sort of huge, community of people that is possibly redundant, at least for that.
Correct.
Right? So that job's been taken over. Then this is not something that's going to make people redundant, but I think is very exciting. I have a friend of mine that is working on an AI company where they were very sort of fascinated by Korean films and they had to watch them dubbed. And he used to find it annoying that the voice would not match the lips.
Right.
So they're coming out with a company where the AI model has sort of studied the voice of 75 languages. And what happens is once you dub, it automatically changes the movement of the lips.
So the video is actually changing.
The video is changing depending on the dub.
Of a real person. So it's
Of
not
a real
an
person.
animated person.
No, of a real person.
Wow.
So supposing you're speaking in Hindi and you want to sort of dub this film in Telugu.
Right.
Earlier what would happen is that the lips would not match, obviously, right? But now what happens is that when you dub, the AI sort of picks that up and changes the movement of the lips automatically. So you actually are making a film in one language, but it feels like it actually exists in another language. And, things like that are very fascinating.
Very
honestly.
freaky, right?
Yeah.
I remember the first time something happened like this for the podcast was where a company came and said that we're going to take all your audio samples and we're going to now have your voice on. So all you have to do is send us a script and the entire thing's going to turn into a podcast.
Correct.
Like, freaky. All right, cool, let's try it
How
out.
long before you don't need me anymore?
Yeah, I was just like, I'll just send scripts to you. And so it sounded very, very cool with a little bit of, Stephen Hawking.
Yeah.
That little robotic was there, but like apart from that, it was just like on point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, one thing that I would sort of really love to do is, I mean, just amongst all the things I want to do, but at some point in life is that develop a sci-fi ecosystem in this country, right? So I read this very sort of interesting survey that was done, and they asked kids in China, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? And they said that I think about 69% of them said astronauts and scientists, right? And they asked kids in the West, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I think about 71% of them said YouTube influencers.
Wow.
Right?
Right.
Influencers, not YouTube, but just influencers, right? And content creators and stuff, which is also great. But I was very fascinated by why is it that all these Chinese kids suddenly want to be astronauts, right? Why are they all like thinking about astronauts as something that is aspirational?
Correct.
And I started reading up, and I realized that they had actually created their own sci-fi universe.
Wow.
There were books, there were comic books, there were so many writers that were writing about science fiction. There were obviously, museums. There's a show. They have I think one of the highest grossing movies now in China ever is a space film, right? So suddenly you have this ecosystem which makes it aspirational for kids to want to be science fiction.
We've had almost no science fiction
We have no
content
science fiction
coming,
in this country.
right? Coming out.
And I mean, to develop an ecosystem which makes science fiction
Jadoo
aspirational.
would have been the only...
Possibly, yeah. I mean,
which other alien...
Yeah. I mean, we've not even had any sort of really... I think there was Rocket Boys just now, which was about...
Which is space travel, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least
yeah,
getting up there.
Yeah. But besides that, I can't even think of any other sort of aspirational...
No. Or at least future-looking.
Yeah.
I think more than science fiction, it is still future-looking. Can you imagine a world different from this?
Correct.
Right? A large part of our content is this world from a different angle.
Correct. So, I mean, so that is something
Fascinating.
that would be fascinating to do, but I don't think I have the bandwidth right now.
No, through your stories. I think you need to get them.
Yeah, maybe some stories, yeah.
Yeah, you should start a fictional podcast on sci-fi here. I'll
too much
hook you
work,
up. Arey, no, very simple.
Yeah?
Yeah, very easy.
Okay, there's an idea.
We'll figure this out. So at least something gets into the process
begin
of
with.
Sci-fi. Are you a big Trekkie?
No, I'm not. No.
Then which sci-fi?
Trekkie as in...
Trekkie as in like...
I thought trekking.
No, not trekking.
It was like
sci-fi
suddenly...
trekking. Star Wars, Star Trek.
Of course, absolutely. And comic books, lots of comic books, lots of sci-fi novels, and the whole sort of lots of future tech things that I enjoy a lot. Yeah.
So there was this one part that I read where it was very interesting. It said that you know about the Borg, right? Obviously, so the Borg is this thing where everyone's communicating constantly.
Correct.
Practically what we're thinking about will happen to us in the future with singularity. And someone was saying that basically Facebook is nothing but you turning into a Borg, right? Because everyone's connected over this one network.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'd never actually thought about it this way.
Correct.
Right? Once you think about it in this way, like we're practically living in that.
Correct. I mean, even with
world.
singularity, I mean, this guy was saying that we're already part machine, right? Because you always have a phone attached to you.
You can't even put it down to pee.
You can't put it down.
No.
You can't. You feel like something's missing in your life. I mean, I went to do this shoot this show, and we were in Ladakh for 2 days, in like a really remote part of Ladakh, which at that point didn't have any sort of Wi-Fi and stuff, right? And it was so difficult. You felt like, my God, what's going to happen when I turn this phone on? The whole world is going to have changed, right? and you turn it on and nothing.
Nothing is changed. Everything's the
It's
same.
exactly the same, but you constantly got this FOMO about putting your phone down. And so we are
it's
already
crazy.
part machine.
What was it like getting your private pilot's license?
Well, flying was something that I wanted to do for a very long time. I think I was inspired by Top Gun.
Right.
And
Has to be.
I remember we used to have this one, and now flying has become something that a lot of people do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many airlines and stuff, but at that point there was Air India, and we had one of the people that stayed in our building was a captain. And I remember like looking at him and feeling like, wow, he's a captain. He flies a plane, and the car coming to pick him up, and he used to be in his uniform and
Right.
stuff. So
It looked very cool.
Yeah, it was very cool at that point in time. Like I'm saying, now we've traveled the world, and there's so many like airlines and stuff. But at that point of time, it was a rare sighting, right? And I remember going to pick up my sister. And at that point, you could also go into the airport. And you could sit and watch the planes.
Right.
I mean, there wasn't security issues and stuff, right? So we would always go like 45 minutes before because I wanted to watch the planes. So in 2000, I think it was 8 or 9, I had some time off and I found out about this one place, Chimes Aviation, which is close to Bhopal in Sagar. And I went there and I was like, I stayed there for a long time. Stayed there as a student. Got a chance to fly, and it was amazing. And even now, whenever I get a chance, I go back because it's very difficult. You can't fly in Bombay. It's impossible to get permission and stuff. So whenever I get a chance, I go back there and I fly for a couple of days and come back.
Difficult to like a lot of math, lot of science, a lot of learning, lot of
But
it
not.
feel like
I
you're
mean,
back in
it
school?
didn't feel so like overwhelming or
Okay.
challenging or any of that. No.
That was my concern. I was like, if I have to give exams again and start mugging, then I have no idea if I'm going to be able to.
No, it's not
do
so
this.
difficult. I think you should go for it.
Yeah?
Enough of the flight simulator.
Enough
now.
flight simulator. Just get into the plane now.
Get
Just
into a
do
plane
it.
and go for it.
Okay, so Chimes, huh?
Yeah, Chimes.
Okay. And what was your experience in a race car?
Well, so I used to go to this rally school outside Bombay, which was just amazing fun. It was started by a guy who used to be a rally driver, and he wanted to make it into a sport and stuff that everybody would enjoy. And we used to go actually every weekend. We used to go every Sunday, and we used to spend the whole day driving there. It was just absolutely amazing. But unfortunately, that shut down and stuff. But it was just, it's so thrilling, right? To be in a car, which it sounds different. You learn how to do like different things in the car. You go up dunes, you go through water. I mean, it's just really exciting, right? And then there was a chance to do some Formula 3 in the UAE. And I was very sort of lucky because at that point of time when I went there, one of the teachers there was on Michael Schumacher's team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he was a really good guy, and somebody had set me up with him, and I went there and stuff. And it's very unnerving because when you sit in that car, first of all, you realize how tight it is. You're practically lying on the floor. That helmet is so heavy.
Yeah.
You don't realize, but it's just it's not. It's it takes a little while getting used to it, and there's no space to sort of move or maneuver really, right? And
And it's loud.
It's loud. You're lying on the floor, and when you start going, you're like, bloody hell, this is crazy, right? And then you realize what these guys go through, right? I mean, for hours and hours, they're in these cars competing. You're not even competing. You're just
Trying to make it
enjoying
around.
it. Yeah, you're just enjoying it. But these guys are competing, and they're at it for so long. And this guy who was Michael Schumacher's coach, not coach, he was just on the team. He told me that Schumacher was competitive about everything, right? So if you were walking down the stairs, he wanted to reach first. Anything that you did, he wanted to see. He was competitive about that, right? And the other thing that all of them obviously learn very quickly is that, you're in this very sort of high adrenaline atmosphere, right? And it's all very like, everything's like, you feel like you have to do everything really quickly because it's just the adrenaline taking over, right? But what they learn to do, obviously, is to breathe and do everything very slowly. Not slowly, but just in a very sort of relaxed, calm sort of way. So everything around is like completely crazy, but they are very, very centered and they're doing everything
Yeah.
in a very sort of calm fashion, right? And that's really fascinating, right?
It's a crazy experience.
It's just deeply meditative because you're anything like, I mean, a split second sort of decision could cost you your life. I mean, not anymore, thankfully, but
Yeah.
there was a time when it could, right? And it did. But you're just, moving in a way which is very relaxed and
Very smooth.
calm, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's I think deeply meditative.
In Dubai, I had done the single seater experience, right, which is not Formula 3, but
Ah.
like a single seater car
Ah.
with wings, with slick tires, and all of that. And so scared to even like go a little faster, especially like your sequential gearbox. I had no idea what gear I was in.
Right.
But then I remember taking one turn and I was thinking, in my little Toyota Innova or Corolla, I would have been in that wall there for sure. How these cars just stick to the road and
It's
take that turn
amazing.
is
It's just
fascinating.
amazing.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's the best sort of combination of man and machine, right?
Right.
Like man and machine at their peak, right?
It's just technology and
Yeah, it's just
coming
both
together.
of them are just at the highest level
Automobile singularity.
possible.
But like, where does this curiosity come from for you? Always been there?
Yeah, I think it's always sort of been there. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember as a young kid reading just everything that I could get my hands on. Right, it was film magazines, it was science magazines, it was Mayapuri, it was Reader's Digest, just everything that I could get my hands on. I wanted to read, and
Are you still a big reader?
I try and I try and read as much as I can. Though now you live in a world of like technology, and then it's a wormhole, right? You read something, then you want to read something more about it, and then something more about it, and before you know it, a couple of hours have gone. But yeah, I still really enjoy reading a book. I think there's nothing like that.
Okay, I'm going to give you my book copy for sure.
Please do. And so I think curiosity has always sort of been a huge part of my being when I look back, and I think it also has to do with the fact that the way I look at it is that, man, life is really sort of short and unpredictable, right? And you never know what happens next. I mean, young people die of heart attacks. You walk out, you could be in an accident, all be over. So how much can I sort of experience, and
Put it
how
all
much
in
can
now.
I sort of like, it's all so fascinating. There's so much to learn, right? So how much in the short time that you have, what do you want to sort of fill your mind with? And I just find new things and ideas just very exciting. I find it very boring after a point to talk about people.
One question is, a lot of people come and tell me that, Ashton, can't figure out how to find my passion. I don't have any hobbies. I don't have anything to do.
Right.
What's like a piece of advice you would give them?
I mean, this is a piece of advice my dad gave me. And I was fortunate that they were so supportive till I found what I wanted to do, right? So I was selling mangoes and, working in construction. And he told me something really interesting. I think I had gone through a phase where I was slightly sort of low about the fact that I couldn't find what I was really passionate about, right? And he said that doesn't matter. It's it's a sort of process, and when you find it, you'll know it, because you'll want to do it even if there's no money involved in that, right? You'll want to do it because it just makes you happy, right? And so I had also worked in the stock market for a bit, and at that point of time, I worked in the stock market because I thought I'll make quick money. And then, in a few months, I was completely like, this is not what I want to do. So I was on a bit of a low, and this is what he told me. And I think that's important. I think, we live in a world where we're just only celebrating success.
Yeah.
We're not celebrating effort. We're not celebrating people's failures. And I think it's very important to put in the effort to explore different things. It's important to fail and be like, oh my God, I tried this, it didn't work out, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I will find what I really want to do. I think most people don't find it because they just look for security immediately. And that's, I mean, that's also a reality. You need to look for security as well. A lot of people, right? But if you can, I think it's just very important to experiment. It's very important to be ready to, put in your effort into something and be like, okay, this is not for me. And not be so critical about like failure and stuff, right? So I think that's really important, yeah.
Allowing yourself to fail. If you don't fail, how do you grow, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone's stuck because they're not willing to fail. Like you said, they're so
And it's
addicted
difficult.
to
I mean, it's so
security.
difficult, right? I mean, it's easier to say, okay, it's all lovely to fail and all that, but nobody wants to. Like, it's just such a tough place to be in, right? But it's a place that makes you feel very vulnerable every time you fail, right? And I think you just have to sort of allow that to happen. That's the only way.
Correct.
I mean, there's some people that are really fortunate. They're born and they're like, I want to be an actor when I grow up, or, I want to be a scientist when I grow up. They're very sort of clear, but those are few and far in between.
Yeah.
I think, also, I mean, I just wrote about is the feeling of comfortably numb, right? You reach a place where you're like, yeah, but, this is taking care of my needs, right? And I'm happy because it's taking care of my needs, not because I'm happy with what I'm doing, right? So I think once in a while you've got to question that and ask yourself whether the needs are more important or whether the joy is more important, right?
Vibrancy of it all.
Yeah, of doing what you're doing, right? So, I mean, I remember one of the first acting workshops that I did was at Prithvi Theatre, and one of the guys there was a clowning teacher.
A clowning teacher, right?
And I got speaking to him, and he used to be a banker before that.
Wow.
He was working in a very, very sort of senior position, one of like the big banks at that point of time. And he had given all that up to go and teach people clowning across the world.
Amazing.
And he said, I've never been happier, right? And I had a fancy car and I had a lovely house and all that, right? So my needs were sort of met, but there was no joy in that. And now there's a lot of joy, so my needs are limited.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that's important.
I think there's a difference between life's good
Yeah.
life's good, right? Like there's a difference in the way that life good is supposed to feel. Okay, quick one. 3 habits that you want to change.
3 habits that I want to change. One is, of course, a little more self-discipline in things that I do, so a lot more discipline. Secondly is the second habit that I want to change is, I'm very bad with I'm very good at mathematics, but I'm very bad with things like accounts and stuff. And that
the
is
rigor of it.
Huh?
The rigor of it.
The rigor of the accounts and keeping accounts and stuff and tax and
It's boring.
I find it very boring. But to sort of also do the things that are boring but necessary,
Correct.
right? And do them with the same amount of, at least try and do them with the same amount of curiosity.
Correct.
So the things that are boring, can you bring a certain sense of curiosity to make them interesting, right?
So I was talking to the MD of Pidilite right now. He used to head all of chocolates for Kraft. So that included like Cadbury's, everything. So like every global MD of this. So he was telling me, Ashdin, I found one thing amongst people who've become successful in the corporate world is that they make the mundane interesting.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Is that stuff that you find boring, not just indulging in stuff that you find exciting and enthusiastic about.
Correct.
But how do you make the mundane exciting for yourself? I think that's the second thing. And the third thing is more consistency, I think, as an actor. And I think that will happen now because, for the longest time, I wasn't being offered the sort of parts that I wanted to do. And so there was a lot of inconsistency.
Right.
There's a movie and then I'm not doing something for a year and a half. And then, there's another movie. But I think there's an incredible thing that comes out of just turning up every day.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that the work that I'm developing now and the work that I'm being offered allows me to do that. Because I'd like to sort of turn up every day and, the joy of that consistency and the growth in that consistency. So I think, a little more self-discipline, making the mundane exciting and a little more consistency.
I love it. And last question, 2 habits that are non-negotiable, have to happen every day.
2 habits that have to happen. Well, eat well is one of the ones that.
Lovely.
And secondly is, I just absolutely love spending time with my son. He's just 15 months old now. And it's not about non-negotiable. It's not like an effort. So
Yeah.
I just absolutely enjoy spending time with him.
How is that?
It's amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. It's more than I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you just feel a kind of deep love that is very sort of difficult to put into words, right? It's just very difficult to define. And I know a lot of fathers that have really not gotten to their children till they're much older.
Correct.
And that's fair. Because they felt like
This
only
is a
when they
priority
became
right now, yeah.
No, only when they became a person that I could sort of
Oh, from that point of view. I don't know what to do with them right
communicate
now.
with. I could develop a deep bond with that person. But I felt a connection as soon as I saw him for the first time.
Wow.
I was like, I just felt that deep connection with him. And it's just, whenever I have the time, I want to spend it with him.
15 months, right? You said?
15 months, yeah.
So like 1 year and 3, so just
3
like,
months now, yeah. What I find really fascinating, one of the things is that just, every time you introduce them to something new, there's just so much wonder, right?
Yeah.
And through their wonder, you also rediscover your wonder for things, right? Because as you grow older, you just start becoming more and more jaded about things, right? It's not like you look at the sun and say, oh my God, what a beautiful, sunrise is amazing this morning. It's very rarely that you do that because you get jaded over time. But when you introduce a child to the sunrise for the first time,
Like, ooh.
they're just so fascinated by this. And through their fascination, you realize actually what a wonderful thing it is, right?
Gorgeous.
So it's quite amazing even for yourself to be able to explore that.
One of the podcasts that we've done right in the beginning was this, look at the world as a habit, look at the world through the eyes of a child. Just see wonder and everything. Like, wow, what is this? How did this happen? And has your son discovered his reflection yet? In the mirror?
He has.
That was
That's
so cute watching kids.
He's already making
reflection.
expressions, like he's practicing expressions. So I'm like,
has he
this
got
is
your
a bit
eyebrow thing
early.
yet done?
He's got like this squint.
Oh,
It's
just
like he thinks it's very cool. It's
like a flirty squint.
it's like it's his cute face. It's a bit like Clint Eastwoodish.
I love it. Kunal, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was absolutely a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much, man. It was
My
great
pleasure.
fun.
Thank you.
IVM